Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Open for Business. Today, we are going to discuss digital transformation in reaction to COVID-19, how Ulta Beauty mobilized for guests and associates with Ulta's CIO, Diane Randolph. I'm your co-host, Deborah Weinswig, and I'm honored to be joined by my co-host, JoAnn Martin, who is the VP of Retail at Yonder. JoAnn has extensive strategic retail experience and a proven track record across apparel, footwear, and accessories, including L Brands, DSW, and Luxottica. In her role at Yonder, she is the industry thought leader for retail. JoAnn continues to support the industry through her out-of-the-box ideas on collaboration and innovation. I'll turn the call over to JoAnn for some opening remarks.
Thanks, Deborah. I'm really excited to be here with you and Diane today. Just a couple thoughts about the landscape and what's happening in retail right now. You know, retail's been through constant transformation over the past several years, but in the past 10 weeks, we've never seen such a strong acceleration in the focus on supply chain resilience and understanding demand forecasting and really being able to see your end-to-end supply chain visibility and not to exclude workforce and making sure that your workforce is safe and safety procedures within there. At Blue Yonder, we've been really focused on working with our 3,500 global customers to be able to leverage our platform, to be able to drive to that visibility and to be able to help them detect their supply chain disruptions proactively. So really excited about what we're seeing within the retail landscape and the rebound that we're starting to see from many retailers. And I'm looking forward to the discussion.
Thanks, JoAnn, and definitely happy to start to see that rebound. So in terms of an introduction, Diane has an incredibly distinguished background. She was named Chief Information Officer in September of 2014 at Ulta Beauty. Prior to joining Ulta Beauty, she was a VP and CIO at Reitmans Limited, which for those who don't know is Canada's largest specialty apparel retailer with nearly 900 stores. In her impressive background, she also spent 25 years in roles of increasing responsibility at what is now Epicor, a leading supplier of retail software and professional services. Diane is a true leader in innovation as it relates to new and emerging technologies and one of the most collaborative people I've had the honor of knowing. Today, we're going to discuss the future of technology, the new normal in retail, and the importance of diversity and inclusion. Please use the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen if you would like to ask a question during the call. And if you would like an opportunity to watch the webinar again, please visit Coresight Events for a video and transcript. With that, I'll turn it over to Diane. Diane, thank you so much, first of all, for joining us.
Well, thank you, Deborah, for that wonderful introduction. And
Absolutely.
thank you, JoAnn. Looking forward to this.
So these are conversations we have all the time, Diane, but what changes have you seen in the way your consumers are interacting with technology right now?
Well, we started the year, obviously, as a multi-channel retailer on our omni-channel journey, but still with 80% or greater of our sales generated from our stores. And when we were faced with the difficult choice of closing all those stores on March 19th, we had to do the immediate pivot to becoming a digital-only retailer. So, we enjoy the great privilege of having a large, engaged, active loyalty program, in excess of 33 million active members who are able to tell us a lot about how they're thinking, feeling, and certainly how they're shopping. So, we were able to see, we know and have been tracking, like everyone else in the industry, which ones were our store-only customers, which ones were e-com only, and of course, the ones that shopped us in both channels, which were obviously where we saw the highest level of engagement. So we responded to that digital push very quickly. We pivoted, outfitting our distribution centers with the right safety standards to be able to serve the guests. From an IT perspective, we fired up our holiday readiness playbook to make sure that we were able to handle the increased demand that we expected. And we certainly saw that come. So we were really, really happy to see so many of our guests who previously had shopped us only in stores be able to make that transition to online. We certainly had to reposition people to support our guest services area as we were helping our guests navigate through our desktop and our app and our mobile presence where they hadn't placed orders before. And certainly, like everyone else, we were dealing with a slower delivery cycle than we had seen previously. So certainly answering questions about that. But we were really happy to see the satisfaction scores and the way our guests engaged with us digitally. That included not only transactional, but really a higher level of engagement with our app. We're very proud of our Ulta Beauty app across the iOS and Android platforms, and the types of engagement and exploration we offer there, and really saw that the number of downloads increase tremendously, as well as the adoption there. So really, really happy to see that. And as our CEO announced just recently on our earnings call, we were able to see 35% of last year's sales recovered through that digital channel. So and we know that has simply served to accelerate what was already a great growth trajectory for us. And we think that growth, a good percentage of that growth is going to stick, even though customers are anxious and have shown that they really do want to get back into the stores. We've also seen, we were also able to pivot and address our ability to allow them to get more local, quicker delivery by firing up curbside BOPUS. We had launched BOPUS last year. We had it active in all of our stores for just the 2019 holiday period. And we saw how much our guests really enjoyed that experience. So really, without any tech investments, we managed to get a low contact curbside pickup going. It really operated on the same kind of email communications we used when they were coming into store. But in this case, we had a clear signage outside that said, pull up, phone this number, we'll run out and bring your order to you, deliver it to your trunk, to your back seat, whatever you're comfortable with. So that has been, that was fired up about a month after we closed stores in certain areas where we were able to do that. It's been our teams have been very responsive and active at creating a dashboard and a monitoring tool to find out where we can and should operate either curbside, or now that we've started to reopen stores, where it is, we believe it's safe to do so, where government regulations allow it, and where we feel that the health metrics support that our associates and our guests can be kept safe by doing that. Another key thing was really the acceleration of our Glam Lab. We had launched augmented reality try-on because we realized that there's so much about our products that need to be experienced and shade matched and really see how they look on you based on your complexion or face shape or whatever. And we had been seeing a steady adoption of that technology and initially saw it as primarily an aid for online shopping, although knew that it had a place in stores as well. Well, now, it's becoming even more important. So we really amped that up dramatically by including a lot of different product families, false eyelashes, hair color, all different things that we had on our roadmap, but we accelerated them dramatically, including things like putting it in just for fun and relaxation in our Instagram page, where we have these cute, fun filters where you can, even my husband has tried what false eyelashes might look like. So it's just a nice diversion, as well as obviously a sales tool. Now, in order to accelerate that, we need to get a much greater and richer set of products, color matched and swatched and, digitally configured within that tool. So we really accelerated 1 year, of 5 years of growth in 7 weeks, essentially. 1 year of growth in 7 weeks by activating what we called our SWAT squad and sent them into stores and had them do all of the sampling to actually get those colors online. So we have seen 19 million shades tried on during this crisis, which was a massive acceleration. We've seen, an increase in 5 times of the usage. And, we certainly see that as a way for us to return to the in-store experience where our former way of using testers is not going to be available right now. We also, the other digital engagement we did was, so much about our in-store experience is about speaking to one of our fabulous associates and leveraging their wonderful knowledge about what products would be appropriate for any particular guest. So we actually fired up a one-on-one beauty advisor video session where you can engage, ask a question about skin, hair, makeup, whatever, and leverage that on a one-to-one video conference. So we've been really happy at the way we've been able to pivot and respond to our guests' needs in that regard.
It's really exciting. And you touched on it through the impacts that technology is having. But when you think about the impacts of COVID, they're so much farther than just technology. What do you see as the new normal for Ulta Beauty? What does that look like in the future?
Well, I think we're building on a very strong position of strength in our communication, and we have always prided ourselves as being known for authentic and transparent communication, and we've really leveraged that and amped it up in this time. So a lot of clear and frequent communication to our guests about their safety, what we are doing to protect both the Ulta Beauty family in terms of making sure that they are kept safe, as well as how we would see our guests return to stores. We've adopted shop safe standards. So our associates are all required to wear face coverings. And, as I mentioned previously, we have blocked testers are still there just to know what colors are in the products because they're an integral part of the display, but they are clearly inaccessible. And we're leveraging that augmented reality glam lab in the stores if people want to try a shade. Increasing our store cleaning protocols, certainly. Hand sanitizer, which was always part of our experience, has now been, even increased through the store. Clear markings on the floor, on the aisles about social distancing. For our salons, because for those of you who don't know, Ulta Beauty offers hair, skin, brow, and makeup services. And we have been able to activate hair services in some of the markets in which we've opened. And they have even more stringent safety standards that we've established after consultation with some great medical experts that have been partnering with us during this process. We also do daily associate wellness checks, temperature and screening checks on every shift. So we're making sure that our guests know what we are doing to protect them and to protect our associates. We're also advising our guests to wear masks, and we will provide them to them if they don't have one. We are also really trying to leverage the mood of the moment and really make sure that we are listening and that we are focusing on the fact that beauty makes people feel good, and that's what they desperately need during this time. So how can we really inform them about different wellness techniques? How can we really respond by showing them the essentials that we carry, the essentials that are necessary for their health and safety, but also for their emotional and physical well-being. So I'm so proud of our marketing team and the campaigns that they've mounted and how they've really been messaging with our guests through all of our properties, email, all of our social channels. We've always had consistent messaging. So proud of that.
Diane, you talk about, this idea of helping the consumer feel safe and cared for and engaged. How are you also translating that to the Ulta Beauty workforce? As obviously all three of us are working from home right now. How have you, not only from a mental health perspective, but also just making sure that, your employees have what they truly need?
Well, really, it started from the very first early days of March, right? And when we started to, even before we closed our stores and had that pivot to digital, we were increasing the safety protocols for everyone across the whole organization. But the communication has been the cornerstone of everything that we've been doing. So, Mary Dillon, our CEO, has been issuing a video message to everybody across the organization every week, with very honest and frank and transparent communication on how we're doing, Ulta Beauty's entered this is in a very strong financial position, very strong market position. And these are tough times, but we know that as a business, we will come through this and be able to continue on our journey. And we've been leveraging all the properties that we have had to do that. So we, had enabled a digital workforce or workplace platform, WorkJam, that we'd leverage through all of our field associates. That's been an integral part of establishing that communication, both from a top-down approach of headquarters to the field, but it's also very valuable in letting teams talk to each other. So that's what people, they need that connection as they're remote and as they're home and as they're not able to go into their stores. And certainly all of the communication for our frontline DC workers who have been front and center through this the whole time. So clearly communicating what we were doing to make them safe, social distancing, reducing our throughput to be able to activate those standards has been really, really well received. We were able to maintain very high attendance records, very clear engagement and support and belief and confidence in our distribution center associates. And as we started to reopen stores, we saw that same, faith and trust in our store associates. We, from a corporate perspective, we have always had a culture of a very flexible workforce, flexible place, flexible time. And so we had been on a journey to, incorporate the technologies necessary to support that for a while now. So we had already invested in, full VPN capabilities, BYOD, two-factor authentication, all the things to enable that and keep Ulta Beauty safe. And then collaboration tools. We had launched Teams in 2019, and it was fully rolled out by the middle of the year and the middle of last summer. And I will admit that when we went into this remote work from home, we were still not quite at that peak of adoption, right? But but everyone was comfortable. Everyone had great training programs, great resources available, and really we were able to get down to the other side of the mountain really, really quickly. Frankly, some of the silly burdens that we had was faulty audio settings and echoing and things, which were often triggered by having too many people with too many devices in one room. Well, that immediately got solved by everybody working remotely. We've also found that, like most companies, we have a lot of meetings, we collaborate, and we have a lot of information sharing. And we've found that meetings are actually more efficient and effective now. You don't have those sidebar conversations. People will pause and wait for other people to speak. So just the behaviors that really we should have had in place to support even some people working remotely are now well entrenched throughout the organization, and that's a great thing to see. So we didn't have to do any fire drills. When I look at some of my peers who were not as far along on their remote capabilities, and some of the fire drill sessions they had to do to get it up and running, and we were able to focus instead on delivering messages as opposed to delivering the technology to enable those messages. So I think that was the clear difference. So right out of the gate, we were able to really communicate clearly, consistently, and steadily to everybody across the organization. Our HR teams also, they had recently upgraded our learning management system and really had done an incredible job at the beginning of this crisis of making sure that they delivered a lot more content, both about, again, personal wellness and coping techniques. I'm so proud of the way we have spent as much time communicating on how to keep people in the best emotional and physical shape at home as they care for, family, whether it's parents or children, and everybody having a unique situation. How are we giving them tools to really be able to do that better, as well as, certainly soft skills, management, technical training. So we've really leveraged those platforms to be able to help people continue to learn and continue to develop during this crisis. And I'll put a thanks into our brand partners and our technology partners for really opening up their platforms during this time too, to offer a lot more courses that, in a virtual way, and also in many cases without charge, which has been really, really well appreciated.
When you think about those collaborative partnerships you have both through technology as well as other areas of your business, how have your expectations of those partnerships changed, or have they? And have you thought about technology and collaboration differently during this time?
We have, we have been Ulta, our culture is one of respect. And that translates certainly to our guests and to our associates who are at the center of everything we do. But our partners are partners. We've always thought of them as that and not vendors and not transactional. And, having been, as Deborah described, having been on the software vendor side and then certainly at a retailer, I can see how it's not always that way. So we've been gratified tremendously to see the support that we've received from both our brand partners and our technology partners. Obviously they have come in to help support us during these times, when, it was critical for us to preserve our cash and our financial situation. And really they have been so supportive and, so innovative in offering different ways that they can help us. And we've done the same thing too. We leverage a lot of the big multinational technology integrated companies. And, certainly when India went on lockdown, some of them struggled a little bit when they first had to equip everybody to work from home. And so we understood that. We, adjusted our schedules. We've been advancing a lot of initiatives to be able to respond to the push to digital. So our needs of those suppliers have not been any less, and they have responded really well, and very gratified to see the way that they're anxious to support us.
Diane, you've shared so many kind of overarching themes and what the company has learned. Can you talk a little bit more about what you've personally learned and how that will change how you think about the rest of the year?
Well, like everyone, my life is very different, right? So it has, while I've been incredibly busy and there's been so much on our plates to do, if I think about it, I've had more time for reflection. I'm not getting up before 5 o'clock, racing to the gym, running through a workout, and then racing to the office. I've found my mornings uh, allowing me to have some time for really true reflection. Not getting into meditation yet, though that's an aspiration of mine, but I really have been reflecting. And, the first feeling that comes out of that is immense gratitude. And I feel very, very fortunate to be in the position I'm in, with my family and close friends and loved ones being safe and healthy. And I realize that is, exceptional in these times. And certainly, extremely privileged to work for a company like Ulta Beauty, who has the values and the culture, of caring, is in an enviable position as a strong retailer. I've also, I am, as many Ulta Beauty executives, we're very active in our communities. So I am on the executive committee of a Chicago-based social enterprise, as we call ourselves, the YWCA. And I have found myself being very active in that organization and the services we provide to the less advantaged people within Chicago. And but I've realized I've gotten an even deeper understanding of the challenges faced in that community, and I'm looking forward to ways that I can really increase my level of involvement and my level of learning, besides just the executive committee. So, I think understanding how to balance the uncertainty and the stress that all of the events, both COVID and certainly, the tragic events with the death of George Floyd, how those are impacting us, and really being able to take stock of what we can do better as individuals, as corporations, and as society to try to make things better.
Diane, we definitely see very much like you're talking about this shift within the landscape of retailers in general collaborating with each other and really kind of working towards a common goal and sharing more. What are your thoughts on that? Are you seeing that from your side as well? Seeing the community of the retail community come together to the extent that maybe potentially we're seeing on our side?
Yes, definitely. I've always been a big proponent of networking across the industry and across. I like to be active in retail CIO networks and as well cross industry ones that are local to Chicago, so you can get both perspective. And the mobilization of all of those networks to help support everyone else has been, overwhelming. Sharing information that everyone, it's common across industry about how might a return to work in corporate workplaces look like, and resources to be able to share there. But certainly within the industry, the sharing that exists is phenomenal. Mary Dillon, our CEO, is the chairperson of the Retail Industry Leaders Association. So naturally, that puts her in a position to influence a lot of collaboration. But there have been great dialogues that she has had and other people on our executive team with retailers that we would not have deeply shared with before. Non-competitive, of course, but really great connections that have just gotten deeper. And interestingly, a good example of that is our chief supply chain officer was well connected with his peer in an apparel company, and they had pivoted to do some domestic production of PPE very early on, and that was how we were able to very quickly get our first orders before our procurement team, went out and developed a broader ability to source that product. So we were able to get those very, very quickly in the hands of our distribution center associates, only by virtue of really just a connection. So I do think that's another behavior that's going to stick. I think people recognize that you have far more to gain and very little to lose by collaborating across non-competitive and sometimes even ones that, peripherally potentially compete. There's just more to learn than there is to lose.
Thanks, Dan. Let's take a look at our poll results. The first question was, in what tech areas is your company investing? 52%, so they're investing in customer experience. And the kind of second was supply chain logistics at 22%. Is that consistent with kind of what you've seen at Ulta Beauty, and how do you think about those stats?
Yes, I would see those. Yes, and I would say, I've never quantified our exact percentage, but yes, that relative ratio looks appropriate. I would say in the other category, we were already on our cloud journey, and we again have continued, if not accelerated that, and that probably is included in other people's answers for the other category, would be my guess.
So second question, and this is actually one I've gotten extensively, is as a retailer, are you narrowing your assortments? If so, by how much? So 7% said extensively, 48% moderately, and 22% minimally. I mean, what we've continued to hear is a lot of thought around assortment optimization. To me, beauty is all about kind of having, kind of endless choice.
Yes.
How do you, and right, and online is just your endless aisle or e-commerce. So how do you think about this?
Well, we've been on our assortment optimization journey for a while. One of our famous taglines is all things beauty all in one place. So we have a very broad assortment, right? And yet it's not, because of a number of different factors, you will not see the exact assortment from one store to the next. In many cases, that's part of our growth of new and emerging brands that when we start with them, they're just not in a position to fulfill 1,200 stores. So we might start them off in 300 stores. And so we select that appropriately. But we are always looking, we're looking to make sure that our turns are as efficient and effective as possible, and looking at really how do we understand the category? How do we think about category adjacencies? And, as we have publicly stated, there is color cosmetics, makeup is, especially notably in the prestige area, has had a little bit of a cyclical challenge. And so we have been already identifying the pivot to skincare and had been on that journey. And certainly during this time when you're working from home and, not necessarily using as much makeup as you might have used before when you were going out, skincare, wellness, face masks, all of those things are even gaining more importance. Now, you talked earlier, you mentioned supply chain disruption. We were very fortunate. All but one current fast fulfillment center, which services only e-commerce orders, the rest of our distribution center network is shared inventory between retail and e-commerce. So when we made that pivot and we saw that huge rise in e-commerce, we did not have to worry about any disrupted supply chains initially on our vendor partners, brand partners side, because we had all the inventory in those buildings that would have provided our retail stores. So we had reserves to draw on, and were able to place orders when our vendors were able to provide and fulfill them. So we were insulated there. But back to assortments, we are always looking at what are the assortments and what should be the proportion in the mix. And we've been on that journey, and are continuing that for sure.
Great, thank you. And then the third question was, how are you developing your demand forecasting? 22% said ML and AI solutions. The remainder were statistically based. JoAnn, is that what you would have expected?
I believe it's a good representation of where the industry sits today, but not where the industry will sit in 6 months. If we ask this question, I think we would see a much different answer based off of the conversations that we're having. COVID has definitely accelerated the need to get to a granular level within your forecasting. And really the best way to do that is to correlate internal and external data, and ML and AI seems to be the vehicle of choice to do that. So statistically based forecasting is still taking a lot of fine tuning, and we're seeing a lot of people move away from that very rapidly into AI and ML based, especially with the conversation of sustainability remaining as strong as what it is, and the minimization of waste, and being able the need to get the demand in the right locations, and e-commerce. So when you think about all of those complexities that are entering the supply chain, retailers are really going to start moving very rapidly, if they haven't already, to ML and AI to be able to predict where to put that demand.
I mean, JoAnn, it's really interesting because right at the beginning of the year, all the talk was around, I mean, I don't know if any of us could have a conversation without sustainability being a part of it, but it was kind of sustainability for sustainability's sake. And now it's just, and actually the topic has come kind of roaring back, but it's sustainability for profitability's sake. And, we've seen some retailers like pack away inventory. I mean, we're seeing some really interesting trends. So, kind of bringing that up, I think is very timely.
Yeah, it is. It's a much different dynamic for sure. And it absolutely is about the profitability of the companies right now. And it's really focused. Sustainability is a very broad topic, but the one that seems intensified is the waste component of it and the minimization of that.
Great. And then the last question from the poll results, how is your company managing return to work and remote work situations? This is interesting. 52% employees are able to continue working virtually for this foreseeable future. And 41% employees have an option to return to work remotely or to go to the office. Diane, is that similar to what you're saying at Ulta Beauty?
We are starting our, Illinois, where we're headquartered, has done a really great job at, protecting our population. And really, we have just been able to think about returning to work based on the beginning of June was allowed. So we are actually going very slowly in that regard. Our first wave, which starts very shortly, is going to have only people who really need to be in the office to complete their work. So, for example, my team that handles equipment coming back from the stores for repair need to touch it. A lot of people in the finance team need to be there. Otherwise, we're really encouraging people to stay at home. Now, that really is appropriate, especially because, there's no camps, schools are still on virtual learning. So people's individual circumstances are such that that's really what they need to be able to do. We've then got a number of phases that are planned that will open that up a little bit, but we don't see until next year a significant percentage of people being back in the office on a day in and day out basis. Subsequent phases are going to allow people to come back who just need it for, emotional relief. They need to, get out of the house every once in a while, right? So that will, and we're maintaining very rigorous standards in the office, and we'll make sure that those are adhered to. So that it's going to look very different, right? We still will encourage meetings to be held through Teams, right, rather than gathering people, even with distancing. The less you move around, the less you interact, although it's going to be a very different, and that social element is going to look very different and disappointing to many. We just feel it's appropriate to maintain that safety. And because we had always encouraged flexibility and we've seen people be able to work effectively remotely, we see a much greater adoption of that. Even when there is a vaccine and it's safe for anybody and everybody to return, we see a lot of people electing to spend more time working remote to get a better balance in their lives.
Thanks, Diane. So we're going to transition now, if it's okay with you. We have quite a few questions from our audience, and I'm going to kick it off with the first one of how is Ulta using technology to increase in-store associate effectiveness for the customer?
Well, we have one of the things we're doing in this is returning part of our safe shopping standards. We're about the safety and the effectiveness, but we are also trying to take a new look at simplifying everything. We've done a really good job at equipping our associates with digital tools for selling, for normal tasking and things like that, as well as really being able to manage their tasks and what they were assigned to do. We're trying to really make sure that at this time of increased safety concerns, that their primary focus is on the guest and on making them feel comfortable. People used to love to come and spend inordinate amount of time browsing our aisles, but now they feel a little bit more like coming in, getting what they need and leaving. So we need to make sure that we are not burdening our associates with anything but essential items, essential tasks. So really taking a different look at what that looks like. Also, reducing visits from corporate people or others that might have come into the store. We want to focus the associates on serving the guests and keeping them safe. So
I'll take the next one. Ulta Beauty has always stood for diversity and inclusion. How have the recent events caused you to communicate differently internally and externally?
Well, yes, thank you. We do hope to be recognized for our diversity and inclusion journey, and it's a journey. We're not where we fully want to be, but we've invested heavily in that. It's been a cornerstone, a core value of ours for several years. We had activated a diversity and inclusion champions network, which was put into place last year, fostering open communication, safe spaces for people to talk and share their experiences. So we had that in place, kind of a little bit like the technology. It existed. We didn't have to fire it up. We've just amped it up. And again, the same way as we've been communicating a lot about wellness, emotional and physical, and connectivity, we've been able to fire that network up to communicate so many learning opportunities and resources for our teams to be able to understand the dynamics and the situation right now. We had already invested in a lot of unconscious bias training in the last year or more, and again we're just amping those up. We were proud. We were called upon by one of our beauty brands. Put a call out really on Instagram to all of the beauty providers to really share openly their diversity statistics. And so, we were one of the first to do that. We know we've got more work to do, but we've made a journey, and we're, proud of that journey, but still anxious and hopeful that we will be able to accelerate that. So proud of our voice and proud of the fact that, our messaging based on, our fantastic brand team has been talking about how beauty is inclusive and beautiful is in the eyes of the beholder, and everyone is beautiful, and that the beauty space should reflect who you are and what you think. And we're not perfect, but that is a cornerstone of everything that we're trying to do. So it's really, again, accelerating and amplifying that message and that work.
That message is really valuable. Thank you for sharing that. When you think about Ulta Beauty, what are you doing to concentrate store fulfillment in market with the explosion of online business? Has that changed how you view bringing the product closer to customers?
Well, as I said, our BOPUS offering has been, very successful, and we see that continuing. I mentioned that we fired up a BOPUS curbside without any tech. We're now looking at, obviously digitally enabling that in a better way, being able to know when our guest is outside and not ask them to phone in. And we see that being a great method that'll persist beyond COVID-19. It's just another convenience factor. We're hearing as our stores reopened to serve guests, we maintained that curbside option. So you can now get your BOPUS order by coming into the store or asking for the curbside option. And, anecdotally, what we're hearing from guests is that they love the curbside. And it's not because they don't feel safe. They feel comfortable in our safety protocols. It's just if they've got children in the car, it's easier than, or perhaps a husband, easier to just get their product and move on. So we see that we're also accelerating we had been doing some ship from store in a very small number of stores, primarily to get that speed to guest. But now we're looking, this year we will be amping that up and increasing that dramatically. So that we will see that as another way to get local fulfillment and leverage our stores.
Thank you so much, Diane. This is a great question. With greater digital engagement, is there an opportunity for beauty seminars or webinars online or local area chat groups with beauty advisors?
Absolutely. In fact, our services team has been doing some great Facebook Live sessions. They've been doing them about 3 times a week. There was a great one. One of my favorite stylists from the New York, New Jersey area gave a fantastic tutorial on how to go 5 days between washing your hair and all different techniques. So really check out our digital properties. You'll see that we are already doing that, amping it up. And like I said, we launched this one-on-one beauty advisor video, and we expect that again to continue and expand as well.
Great, thank you.
Here's another one that's really good. Ulta has a great loyalty program in market. How has COVID impacted the program and the resulting customer behavior as it applies to those changes?
Well, I mentioned earlier, we are able to know our, segmentation, if you will, of online shoppers, store shoppers, and omni-channel shoppers. So we're able to see that engagement of our guest in moving to digital has been strong and successful, with very good satisfaction scores. So we see that as a tremendous opportunity for the future, that those omni-channel guests who blend their visits and do some online and some in stores are just our most highly engaged members. So to see more of them is really exciting. Now, we've only had our stores open. We started opening a small number of stores back on May 11th, and we don't have the full chain opened yet. So it'll still remain to be seen how they choose to shop in the future, what their proportion of purchases will be. But, any time we have seen someone experience us in both channels, that persists and that stays. The other element is downloading our app. Engagement with our app, certainly promotes greater frequency and retention. And so again, those app downloads and app engagement statistics are very promising for us.
Thanks. Great question. As any insights to beauty trends post-COVID, I think kind of post-crisis, you spoke to skincare and wellness. Any others that are top of mind?
I would say thinking about lip is interesting with needing to wear masks and wanting to wear masks to be safe. How do people think about expressing their personality when a good part of their face is hidden? So that's one of the reasons that led to our Instagram filter for false eyelashes, right? We're seeing, people think about maybe doing a little bit more or treating their eyes a little bit differently because that's the part that's more visible now. But we are seeing, if we talk about sustainability, there has been a very prevalent trend toward clean and natural beauty that we've been on as well, and so we're seeing that increase in importance. And skincare, which was growing, will continue to remain really strong. So,
great.
When you look at the digital customer experiences, are there any you'll be adding or looking to add in addition to what you've already deployed through some of the changes you've talked through?
Well, we were really already had and frankly have accelerated our new digital experience. So stay tuned. It'll be a while before it's out in the wild, but really, we had been rethinking that, and we're working actively on that. So nothing we can do in pivot in the real time, but we are looking continually at how we can continue to engage through our existing properties, our app, continuing to expand that try-on experience, that consultation experience, leveraging our beauty experts in a digital way. And then again, of course, increasing our technology when it comes to more seamless focus. Those would be our first areas of prioritization. As well as, the other thing that we're accelerating significantly is our supply chain enhancements. So we are pulling forward. We were going to open up a second fast fulfillment center for e-com only, and that was going to open in 2021. We've now moved that into 2020.
Great, Diane. I could ask questions all day, but we want to be respectful of your time. So thank you so much for sharing your insights and your passions. And JoAnn, thanks for another great call. We appreciate it. Thanks, everyone, for joining us.
Thanks, Deborah.
Thank you.
Thanks.